Hello and welcome to another episode of Data Delicacies, where we bring the best and brightest in the industries to talk all things hospitality, all things tech, all things data, and talk about some of the new exciting trends that are happening. Today, we have a very special guest, someone who I get to see on the road quite often, which is great. Always the man of the show, does a ton of traveling, so it's very well versed in kind of, ear to kind of what's going on in the industry, all the different trends. Is actually at the forefront of what we're seeing as, one of the biggest changes to the industry, not just in hospitality, but across multiple different industries. So I'm super pleasure to have Jason Valentine, Chief Strategy Officer at Botrista on the show. Jason, thanks for joining. How are you?
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. And that's quite the intro. I appreciate that. And hopefully I can fill those shoes that you set me up with. So yeah, excited to see you virtually. I mean, we see each other all the time on the road, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great,
glad
right?
to be here.
Being able to build that bond in person and just seeing each other, and then kind of the inverse, right? Because usually it's like you start with a Zoom call, then you see people in person. So I'm glad we were able to meet the right way, I guess the old school way, as you want to call it. Which I think just before we jumped on here, we're chatting about how that that human element is so important nowadays with all the tech that we see. So
it is
Jason,
it is important. I mean, you reached out to me to do this podcast, and the answer was yes, right? I mean, because I know you and I know what you're doing, and I've seen how seen you out in the circuit, and seen the value that you add and your company adds. And it's funny because had I not known you outside of you just reaching out, I probably would have never responded. Right.
Yes.
Not to be rude, but how many messages do we all get all day? Right.
I couldn't agree more. And, just from obviously hearing about, what you are obviously on the road, and we've always had some chats just kind of candidly about some stuff. And I said, what better person to have on the show to talk industry? Because I think, what we've seen through this show is just a lot of good conversation getting generated that then just, as a byproduct, it's led to a lot of cool things from there. People reaching out to our guests and hey, we want to hear more about this. And it also just gets the name on it. And again, I just, I think that there's a lot of thought leadership that happens specifically at these shows, right? Not everyone goes to shows. And what I always thought was like, hey, how can we peel some of that out and then share with the broader audience? Because there's a lot of great people. I know that you do a lot of speaking engagements and shows and talk about a lot of really good stuff. I've been fortunate to sit at some of those, and I thought it'd be great to kind of share your voice to a broader audience. So
I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So the theme of today's episode is obviously the crux of it is robotics, and Botrista is kind of the core of that when it comes to revolutionizing how the beverage industry is working, specifically with regards to robotics. So what I wanted to kind of start off with is, how has robotics technology helped restaurants capitalize on one of their hardest, sometimes their highest margin products, which is beverages? How have you guys been able to do that so well over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think I'll kind of start with what we do, and that kind of will set the conversation. But so we do automated cold beverages, right? So we're a beverage company first and foremost, right? We source the ingredients. We have a culinary team that puts the recipes together, and they're all custom beverage program that we create for our partners. But it's powered by automation, right? So the bot is 4.5 square feet, and is a 4.5 square foot bot that does any cold beverage on ice or blended. What's interesting, to answer your question in a little more detail, is that we have found that our one bot actually replaces 12 other machines. Because when you think about it, what our bot does, it can do cocktails, smoothies, boba tea, shakes, refreshers, you name it, if it's cold, coffee. So what we found as far as how it's helped our brand partners, one, it's helped them offer more categories, right? Because without a way to serve all these categories, you can't do it in the space that they have. So we found that actually the automation has been great for our partners and the ease of labor and consistency and whatnot. But really what we've done is we've given them the ability to serve more categories and increase their sales. So that's been interesting to see how well received that has been from our partners. My history is restaurant executive. And I'll tell you, when I was at my previous company, a national chain, about 26 states and Canada, we wanted to introduce smoothies, as a complementary item to our menu. And for 3 years, we didn't do it. And the reason we didn't do it is because it just took up too much space.
Right.
So I always go back to that because, beyond the automation, what we've done is we've been able to give people an efficient way to offer a variety of categories.
Got it. And from what I know is like for all those different cold drinks you'd mentioned, you'd need like its own. Typically, you need a specific machine for each one.
Correct. Yeah. So like if there's a restaurant that serves, say shakes, and, refreshers and maybe smoothies, those are all different machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And they all work on their own. We're not, we just offer something different. We offer an automated program that does all of it,
Yeah.
at the touch of a button. So it's definitely, the first couple, I've been here 2.5 years, and initially, I'll tell you, the challenge was that people looked at us as a piece of equipment, right? So when you go to a show or you see what we do, you see a, pretty innovative, slick piece of equipment. But what we make sure people understand now is that we're a beverage company, right?
Right.
So the quality is very important to us. But we have, of course, ridden the wave of automation because it is trendy, it's needed in the industry, and we've seen robotics automation a handful of years in different ways throughout restaurants, and some of it works and is scalable, and other automation and robotics, it's just kind of early, and we have to see how it goes. So
Yeah, yeah, which is interesting. I think in, not just robotics, but there's a lot of other of very fastly evolving, new technological advancements. We talk about AI, which we were talking about, where it's about how you use it and how it's packaged in with kind of that end result, right? Versus it's not just a
yeah,
means to an end, right? Like it has to be serving some sort of purpose. And I think sometimes maybe there's too much of a reliance to say like, oh yeah, like AI, ML or robotics, it's just going to make my life completely easier. But there has to be some sort of like meaning or strategy behind what you're trying to accomplish. It has to also fit in with the brand that you're working with.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, how it fits in their operations and how it fits in their daily workload is important. And I think that often as an industry, we get excited about, new and innovative, whether it's robotics or automation or AI, whatever it might be at the
Right.
back of the house. And what purpose is it serving is a great point. And is it actually help the managers and the owners in their daily walk? I mean, I'll tell you, I like talking about this because before I took the job, so my history, restaurant executive, I exited the company about 3 years ago. And then I was kind of in a position where, okay, what do I do next? Another restaurant executive leadership role, or,
Right.
just kind of look at my options. I came across Sean from Botrista. And then when I first looked at the opportunity, when we kind of started talking about what it would look like to have a restaurant executive join the company, I visited 10 locations that had a Botrista, had a drink bot, right? And my only reason for visiting was to talk to the cashiers and the managers to see if they liked it. Because to me, that was whether I was going to pursue it or not. Because if I visited locations and they didn't like it, it's not going to work.
Right.
So obviously I visited there and they all liked it, right? They loved how easy it was to use. They loved the quality of the drinks. But I think that's the bar for automation and robotics. Do the employees like it?
Yeah.
Because we all understand that if the employees don't like it, it is not going to work. And maybe it will work and you have to make some improvements and some tweaks,
Yeah.
but it's dead. You might be able to have someone sign a contract. You might be able to get a few brands to test it. But I'm telling you, if the employees don't like it, start over or rework it because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I love that sentiment because I feel like not enough folks are looking at it from that approach, right? Because
Yep.
we've had a lot of a mix of folks on the show, right? We've had operators, vendors, and that's that common theme of like, hey, you can sell this great idea to maybe the executive
Yep.
team of an operating group, but that still has to trickle down to the frontline
It
staff or
does.
franchised out, right? A lot of the time you have to go resell it to the franchises, and it's like if the vision is just stuck here and it doesn't trickle down, then you're just never going to be able to scale it, and it's never going to be a worthwhile thing for the brand that's using it.
No, I think it's tough. I've been, for me personally, I've been in the restaurant for many years. I've been on the restaurant executive side, now on the partnership side. And I definitely made decisions as a restaurant executive that didn't always connect with the employees. I would like to think I'm connected, but I wasn't always connected. And I've had the ability to just work side by side or work with or meet a lot of restaurant executives as you have. And there was one executive years ago told me this. His approach to anything new, you could say automation, you could say new menu, whatever you want to say, anything new in the restaurant, what he did is he implemented it and then he left for 2 months.
Hmm.
And he said he came back in 2 months. If it was 90% or more meeting the intent of the project, it worked. If he came back and it was way different and it actually didn't work in real life, then he knew that there was a problem there. So I loved the approach, and the advice he gave was walk away, install it, implement the program, whatever it is, a new menu, a piece of equipment, whatever it is, implement it, disappear for 2 months.
Yeah.
And if it's going to work or not when you come back.
You brought this up earlier where you call the customers you work with as partners, which I thought was a great way to look at it. Talk about that kind of strategy of how you work with your brands as partners and how you help them kind of scale through their growth plans.
Yeah, so I mean, I might want to tell the founding story first before I talk about that.
Yeah, please. Yes.
And the reason is because
it was a great one, so I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the founding story actually just kind of plays into why we say, I have a lot of people say partners, but how we truly view them as partners, and we do partner with our brands. So founding story. So Sean Su from Taiwan, a sealer entrepreneur, very smart individual, and beyond just being intellectual, he understands the world in a lot of ways. And he's just a really interesting gentleman, and has a lot of good life experience. And at a younger age, I think he's only 35 now. So Sean from Taiwan, sealer entrepreneur, invented a handful of companies, before he was the age of 18. Right. And one of the companies he invented was a robotic cleaning company. Right. So essentially is a robot that cleans water after oil spills. So that was his kind of first early win as an entrepreneur. And he sold that company and exited. And then he moved to the United States and went to Stanford and Michigan. Not just one of them, both of them. Two great schools, of course. And the interesting part of the Botrista founding story is now becoming more relevant as he went to Tesla. So Sean worked at Tesla for about 6 years or so. And the relevant part of that is he was part of the first fluid dynamic engineering team. Right. Wow. So I can only talk about this at a high level because I don't understand even 5% of what he would communicate as far as what he did there. But simply said is he worked on the fluids that are pumped through the batteries. Right. So thick, fluids are going through the battery on the Tesla. And, so this fluid dynamic engineer team he was on, of course, Tesla on the forefront of everything that's innovative. And at the same time, him and his family owned 30 Boba tea or coffee shops. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of where Sean's technical world and the restaurant world, food and beverage world kind of clashed. Right. So as an engineer-minded individual, he's looking at his restaurant operations, his cafe operations, and he's seeing the inconsistency in product. And he's seeing, people come and go, and the training, get someone trained after 6 weeks, and then they're gone, and you got to train a new person. So, of course, there must be a better way, right? So this is where Botrista was born, right? So it essentially invented a cold beverage platform that could dispense quality, thick purees or concentrates at the touch of a button, essentially meeting the consistency of the product, eliminate training and having the employee focus on other tasks while the beverages are being made. So, at first, Botrista wasn't all cold beverages. He started with a handful of categories, and we've evolved to anything cold on ice or blended. So that's the founding story. And as he, kind of that answer your question, how do we view people partners? We view them as partners because truly we are trying to make their business better. And a partnership that does that is hands-on, and it actually solves a problem. So now when we implement this technology and implement our beverage program into our partners, we are not selling equipment. Like we don't want to be thought as equipment. We are a beverage program. So when we come in there, we install the bot, we train the staff on the bot, we source the ingredients, right? We have constant touch points with the managers in the four walls. We sometimes do 100% of the marketing with the okay of the brand, and they just approve it, right? Not every brand has a robust marketing team or resources. So we do the full program. So what happens, we use the word partner, which many people use the word partner, but what actually happens is we become part of their team. We had one brand recently that we actually put one of our employees in their corporate office as a full-time person.
Wow.
Right. And they, it made sense because they were the ones who were going to implement the program across a couple hundred stores. And right, they just became part of their team. So like, it's our employee, we pay them. They work for Botrista, but they're actually in the four walls of that corporate office of that brand. And that's not every case, but that's an example where we just kind of integrate what we do with them. And, we're at SeaWorld right now and, expanding there, and a great partner. And I remember getting a call from our team, got a call from them and said, you guys can go home now. We're good. Like, you've been here, like plenty of help. Like you don't have to be here all the time, which just kind of points to we over service our partners to the point where, maybe we're annoying and we should just go home. But kind of
Hey,
proud of
that's a
that.
rare thing in this industry. That's a rare thing these days. That's good. That's a good problem to have.
And it's a good problem. But we are, in fairness, we're not, we have software, we have product, we have hardware. So we're just built that way. In many cases, you don't need a vendor or a partner inside your four walls, or it just works for us. So we do call partners, and there's a real authentic meaning of why we do that.
I love that. And just to go back to the founding story, that's amazing. I mean, I've read about kind of that, and I saw some stuff about Tesla, but I hear, it's it kind of makes sense, right? You go that,
Yeah.
you do dynamic engineering, which, that's probably like a whole different world on its own. To your point, it'd probably be way over my head. But
Yeah.
understanding that piece of it now makes sense. And then tying that to, the family restaurant story, it all just kind of blends in together, which is, I think it's a fascinating. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stories along the way too, but
Yeah.
it's a fascinating founding story.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do is do demos with Sean, right, our founder. He'll bring the parts and the flow meters and the different technical parts of the bot, but he also brings the actual puree. We have this really great strawberry and mango puree, and you can smell it from 5 feet away. It got a really distinct fresh fruit smell because it is fresh fruit. It's just pureed into that form. And what I love seeing Sean do is like be so excited about and proud of the quality of the product, and then actually show, okay, this is how we can do it because of this technology within our bot, and how the flow meter controls, precisely this this thick puree. So yeah, it's a fun business in beverages,
Yeah.
and then I learned a lot about technology. I mean, I'm not the technical guy, but I just know that the end product and what we deliver.
Yeah, that's super cool. Last question, just I mean, this is, just personally, I'm just super curious about this stuff. Is the ingredients themselves,
Yeah.
like are you providing that to them based on what they want, and then you kind of source it them on a monthly basis based on what they need?
Yeah, so we are an ingredient beverage company. So this is how it works. When you have let's say a strawberry lychee green tea refresher, all right. So our bot will make a strawberry lychee green tea refresher. When it makes it, it pulls every ingredient separately to make that bot. So it's like to make that drink. So it's like almost like a bartender or someone making a hand mixed drink. So
Right.
the strawberry comes out separately, the cane sugar comes out separately, the tea base comes out separately. So that being said, we source all kinds of ingredients, right? And then we have obviously a large menu, and with our partners, we give them a variety of options of categories and flavors. And then also for our partners, we usually like to create like a specialty drink, right?
Mhm.
That you can only get at their restaurant. So I'll use Shipley Donuts as an example. So Shipley Donuts just finished out an LTO called a Cookies and Dream, which is like a cookies and dream frappe that we just developed just for them,
Hmm.
right? It was their recipe, positioned as especially available at Shipley only. So we have a lot of common recipes and common categories, but we love to develop individual drinks. But all those are developed through a variety of ingredients we have. So to answer your question, we source the ingredients and we sell the 1 gallon highly concentrated bibs to our partners, and then we make the best drinks possible with the different ingredients that they have there.
Wow. That's really cool. That you get to, like, I think that unique piece of creating something that is tied to a brand. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, that's the win, right? So we were at FS Tech. I think you were there as well.
Yeah.
And what we did there is essentially for every brand that was attending the show, we created a specialty drink that they should be selling at their restaurant,
Mhm.
right? So, if you want to stand out, you got to do something different. So I stood up on stage and said, okay, all the logos of the people there, like we made a special custom drink just for your brand to serve to your customers. Like we want to show you what you should be serving. And it was a hit, right? People came by and like, oh, what do you have? What'd you make for us and why? And Then I got my culinary guys, Jared Whitlow, my SVP of beverage strategy, talking to the brand partners of, why we created the special drink for them and how it pairs their food. And so it's definitely unique. We're not just selling a standard lineup.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
selling a program.
I think about as a consumer, as we're both consumers, sometimes you go to a specific place for one specific menu item, and if you love it, you
Yeah.
go back all the time, right? Like, this is a lame example, but I'll take my dog to Starbucks for the pup cup, right? And I get my
No, that's experience. Yeah,
thing, right? Like I'll go
absolutely.
there for that. And there's other place I go where I get specific drinks. I know I love the drink there. Like
Yeah,
example, like, when I go to Boston, I always stop by Blue Bottle coffee, right? Their
oh,
coffee is
absolutely.
beautiful. So it's there. There's not one near me, but if I'm there, I'll always go try it out.
Yeah,
My other follow-up question is, do you have one? I want one in my house now, just because of what you're saying. Like my
yeah.
wife and I love to make cocktails and stuff all the time. And I'm just, yeah, just as a joke. But is it something that will ever have like, be pushing to residential at some point, or is it strictly home?
Yeah, it's funny. We do hear it a lot, and usually it's someone I'm doing a deal with. And my deal is if you have over 1,000 units, I will get one for your house. So
Yeah,
anyone watching, but
nice.
yeah, there'll be a potential home version that far in the future, but we're focused on the now and the next couple of years, right? So the thing about this bot, we have one awesome bot, right, and it does everything cold as we talked about. There's so much market potential for this, and it beyond restaurants. We can talk later, but we're in many colleges across the country. We're in movie theaters, theme parks, family entertainment, whatever it might be. So there's so much opportunity for this backhouse experience for food and beverage that it's not really any time in the near future, but it definitely is doable.
Yeah, that's cool. The one piece you brought up, and I'd love to bring up here is, you talked about how robotics, um, and kind of automation to a certain extent it works, right? And
Yeah,
and you've talked about stories of people that have tried fully automated places, it didn't work.
yeah.
Talk about kind of what that good blend you're seeing is between where we're at now and full automation, and what's made you guys so successful, like kind of deploying that model across all the different locations you work with today.
Yeah. So part of our founding story, and I didn't tell this part, but part of it was that when Sean first started working on Botrista, he did a fully automated boba tea shop, right?
Hmm.
So he did the arms, like everything, that grabs the cup, grabs ingredient, like the fully automated. They are out there, right? But he did this, and this was 2018 or 17 that he did the fully automated boba tea shop, and he learned very quickly. And when he tells the story, his eyes light up because he learned. You can see, like in him thinking about it, he learned like this isn't going to scale, right? This not anytime soon, at least, right? So the how much the cost of it, the maintenance of it, right? The time it took to do it, like it does work out there. Like people say, well, there's places doing it. There are places doing it now, with no doubt about it. The point on automation, which we found, was that to scale effectively and add value to the operations and have it be, economically make sense and meet the expectations of quality and speed of service, Sean ended up actually bringing the cup to the automation. So for this, everything goes in the blender and then we pour the blender. So we have almost fully automated, but someone's got to pour it out into a cup, which eliminated a lot of the unscalable part of
Right. Right.
the early days. So, I think for me, automation as a restaurant executive and for Sean as a founder of Botrista, we want it to be scalable. So, I think that there's automation right now that is just way too early, and it's
Right.
cool and it's fun and it should be pursued, but it's not going to go into 1,000 units in 6 months. I spoke on a panel 6 months ago, and I won't mention the who because it doesn't matter. But on the panel, I was the only executive leading an automated company that actually scaled. Everything else was super cool, and it's going to be absolutely successful in the future. It's just some things aren't ready yet.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but if you look at other industries, I mean, the restaurant industry is always behind in everything. There's reasons for that, but there will be a time where many restaurants are fully automated and it's scalable. They're definitely out there right now. I was at the airport last night and there was a fully automated kiosk for pizza.
Mhm.
What brand I've never heard of. It was very early days for them, and they just were installing. And it's cool to see it. And there's plenty out there already that we can talk about, and them that are scaling. There's a handful of food companies right now across universities that are doing really well with self-service food kiosks, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I've got to divide between what's scalable, what actually is working now and adding value, and what is new and what actually
Yeah.
will evolve in the future. So
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think that, what is what we would consider maybe conceptual or maybe gimmicky
yeah,
now and realistic and scalable. I feel like those lines, it's coming closer and closer together, right? I mean, a lot of stuff was like super far away. Like you'd see it in a
yeah,
movie and you're like, oh, well, this is going to be like Blade Runner, like, 100 years from now. Where
yeah,
now it's becoming so close.
it is. Yeah,
Timing and how you present it, I think, too, is so important because it's only gonna be a matter of time with everything shifting so quickly. And this actually takes, a good segue into kind of the next question I wanted to ask you. Kind of taking a step back, and you're obviously, you've been on both sides, the operator world, and now
yeah.
on the vendor side and at the forefront of automation. What are some of the other cool things you're seeing pop up in the hospitality space specifically that you think is going to make some crazy waves over the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I've seen, and many would say the same thing, I believe, is there's a more of a focus on experience now. Like, during COVID, we had the COVID situation, and smaller square footage and third party, and all that is still very much real right now. But right now, I believe there's a big focus on providing a great experience to customers, and that can be done in many ways, right? So it's not always technology. It's not always the traditional, great service that people think of as far as experience.
Yeah.
It's just, I think brands are trying to find a way to add a unique experience. You mentioned the pup cup. I mean, like, that's not actually anything, crazy innovative or even new,
Yeah.
but like, that's an experience, right? So I think anything that is increasing or adding a valuable experience to the customers is important. You talk about automation, so you have, of course, the lockers, the food lockers where you order from the kiosk and you get it out of the locker. I mean, that's an experience, right? That's not a typical or traditional hospitality experience, but it's a pretty cool experience. So for me right now, what I'm seeing happening and people talk about and people winning at is kind of changing that experience in a unique and fun way.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's cool. And I think even we're starting to see it too, like the concept of entertainment is starting
Yes.
to scale back up again, right? Like we're seeing so
Yeah.
many of these cool concepts pop up, like F1 Arcade and Putt Shack and Flight Club. There's a lot of cool ones, and I think part of it too is we're almost spoiled, right? Like we're just going down and sitting down and having a great meal is just
Yeah.
not enough anymore, right? There has to be so much more to it. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think our attention spans have just gotten down to nothing. But it's also we're seeing a lot of cool creative stuff coming. I mean, I think Vegas is probably the epitome of all that stuff. You see it all the time.
Absolutely.
But it's really cool seeing a lot of these, I guess you can call it hybrid service models or experiential dining type of concepts come out now, which I think is going to be really cool to see how that spreads. I
Yeah.
mean, you see it in Europe all the time, and now, especially North America, seeing a lot of that pop up.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what is it, Toyna? What's it, entertainment? What's it called? What do we call it?
Entertainment.
Entertainment. I just read that. I just heard that like last week. Entertainment. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I
It's
mean,
like
that's newer, right? Did I miss the memo on that, or is that?
I don't know. Maybe it's just my thing I made up, but
No, I read it last week. I was like, this new
yeah,
entertainment
yeah. A lot of
category.
folks, I've just been talking to some folks too that are like super interested in the space. We're just seeing a lot more
Yeah,
pop up now, and it's becoming. Some people call it like hybrid service model. Some people are just like very much focused on that space, and I think it's cool because it kind
yeah,
of blends everything. And again, another great place for like folks like you to be involved in and kind of helping them out. So so again, Jason, we're coming up on time here. I really appreciate a lot of stuff that you shared here because again, I think this type of stuff I love it. I just love to
it's fun.
automation, and I'm obviously constantly at my home trying to automate stuff. I mean, it's all Google this and that, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, but for the most part, I'm a strong believer of that. The tech is only as good as you use it. And
Absolutely.
if you use it the right way, it's whether it's in your personal life or in the hospitality space, whatever that looks like, it can make things a lot easier for you. And to your point, scale, right? I think it's one thing
Yeah,
to have a cool gimmicky thing, but if it's not being scalable, then you're kind of stuck in a spot. So typically, actually before we wrap up here, any last kind of parting words on your thoughts on automation or the industry in general that you want to share before we wrap up today's episode?
well, I think one thing we talked about was conferences, right? And all the automation being and the new technology being shown at conferences. And one thing that is an interesting conversation is that I think, well, based on what I'm seeing, only 10% of restaurant executives go to shows, right? There's so many brands out there and so many leaders. So what is real interesting to me is as an industry, how do we actually evolve technology and get it in front of decision makers so it can actually happen quicker? And not Botrista aside, right? I'm just generally speaking. Think of FS Tech. FS Tech. There's always a bunch of new tech partners there and some new cool stuff. Well, that only happens if people partner with those vendors and try it, and then it only happens if it only scales if it actually works. So what's real interesting to me as a talking point is, how do we actually get these technology opportunities in front of executives, knowing that only 10%, and this is my data, so take it or leave it, of restaurant executives go to shows, right? Yeah. They have a very intense, hard job, and a lot of brands don't go to shows. And, so for Botrista, we do that through obviously networking and trying to, do things like this. Like, you have this podcast going out that will give exposure. So I think it's a real opportunity to advance the industry if we find different ways to get these innovative tech ideas in front of decision makers.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think, we travel quite a bit together, and a lot of times you're seeing the attendee lists, and it's kind of like the same usual suspects. And, sometimes I'll just be traveling for a specific meeting, and then you'll sometimes walk across a brand, you're like, oh wow, this is a huge brand in the state that maybe is in the state but doesn't go to the big shows, right? And
sure.
They sometimes need that there's maybe that gap in like, hey, how do we get this information out to them as well, right? Versus the same people over. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. I think we're always looking for creative ways on our side to get the name out or just have these cool conversations. Because again, it's because I think the North American market is almost so different sometimes by geography, right? Like each state, all things going on. Are you really resonating with them, right? Is your message too broad? Is it too narrow? I think there's all the different things that, we think on our side. I'm sure you do as well. And automation to people in one brand could be a super scary thing. For others, it could be like, hey, we're like 100% in on it, right? So it's also that different dynamic of who you're working with and where they're coming from and whether they've had a bad experience, right? I think sometimes a lot of what we deal with is brands are coming off a very bad experience with their previous vendor or whatever.
Absolutely.
And they're really scared of the concept now because like, hey, like it's already happened once, most likely going to happen again. So it's like retrain their brain to think like, hey, no, that was just, the execution wasn't there, whatever that is. So I'm sure that especially with what you do, sometimes it's, at the forefront of that, they can get a little bit scared away.
Yeah, which it's, technology has burned a lot of people, right? So for us, we're blessed because no one has done what we've done. But it is new. So the new is scary. As an industry, often we're waiting for the big players to do something, and then the medium. That's just kind of how it works, which is fine. The question, of course, every vendor gets and every restaurant executive asks is, "Who are you with?" Right. Yeah. So there needs to be validation that it works somewhere, and it's okay to move slow as an industry at times. But I do think there's a lot of innovative tech that might not be happening because they just haven't gotten in front of the right people and had a chance to implement with partners. It's just interesting to see if we can evolve that. Obviously I'm focused on Botrista and you're focused on, your company, but it is cool to see just people succeed in the industry and add value to partners. And restaurants are a hard business to operate.
Yeah.
So, the more value you can add through different partners is going to be meaningful.
Yeah. Love it, Jason. Typically how we end these shows is with a quick lightning round. So I'll kind of fire off a few questions just so the folks get to know you a little bit better. And first thing that comes to mind, let's hear it. So since we're talking about beverages, what's your current favorite cocktail of choice?
Cocktail? So it's anything blended with a little bit of alcohol in it, right? So I think I would say, the margaritas are pretty good. There was this, Jared made a drink that's called the Cocktail Dream. He didn't name it, but he called it Cocktail Dream. I don't know what it is, but anything blended with a little bit in there that you can't taste it has been nice. So blended cocktail. Nice.
And then, specifically from the Botrista machine, what is your favorite beverage that you've had from the Botrista machine?
There's just too many. Well, the couple categories. One are shakes. Our shake category is awesome.
Yeah.
And then our frappes are just a home run. And then any kind of energy refresher, I'm always a sucker for.
Nice. You travel quite a bit. What would you say is your favorite food city in the world?
I was just talking to our CFO about this, and based on he was a data guy, so he was saying that New York, of course, is number one, and San Francisco is number two,
Hmm.
which is where we are based out of. So I will go with San Francisco as my favorite food city.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of great dining experience in San Fran. It's awesome. It's a really cool
Yeah,
city.
they have the second most three-star Michelin restaurants. New York has it first.
Yes, that was actually I think my first ever Michelin star experience was in San Francisco. It was a
Yeah,
Thai. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was great.
yeah.
So where's home for you?
Michigan. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
actually home is I'm from Wisconsin, so home to me is really Wisconsin. But I am now the last 5 6 years I'm a Michigan guy, Detroit metro area.
Oh, nice. My aunt lives in Ann Arbor. I'm there all the time, so I'm
Yep,
all through Michigan. So
right there by University of Michigan. Yeah.
yeah. She actually works at the UFM. So what is your favorite restaurant in Detroit, and what is your favorite dish at that restaurant?
My favorite restaurant, I'm just going to go fast casual. Like I'm not going to fine dine it, but Beyond Juice.
Okay.
I'm familiar with them, so they're a great Michigan brand. They have great bowls, great smoothies, great juices. So awesome fast casual.
Nice.
But Beyond is my favorite as of right now.
Love it.
Now I was the CEO, or sorry, the president and CEO of Zoop Eatery. So Zoop is always a top choice for me. It was founded in Michigan. But that'll be my number two right now.
Nice. Love it. Well, Jason, I can't thank you enough. You shared so much cool stuff here. I learned a lot from this one. I'm kind of counting down until I can get one of these things in my home because
We'll let you know.
our big cocktail makers, and right now I have like my espresso machine and our blender and all these different things. And
Too
if I
much.
make it easier, and again, if I could impress the guests that come through, maybe they don't see it, I hide in the back and make sure
There
they
you go.
like I made it. That'll be a cool thing. But no, seriously, I thank you so much for coming on. I think what you guys have been doing is awesome. It's so cool to see your journey. Always good seeing you at the shows, but I think more
Yeah, as
importantly, how
well.
you guys are helping brands has been unbelievable. And it's it makes a lot of sense with the founding story, how you guys have approached it. But again, coming as a beverage brand and looking at your, each of your customers as partners that you're looking to scale with, I think that, that in itself is I think what has contributed probably to a lot of your success. So kudos to you and the team.
Appreciate it.
See how much further you grow, and yeah, again, like I'm sure a lot of people on the folks that'll be listening are saying, hey, how can I get one of these myself? So the one way is if you have 1,000 locations with them, you can, but it's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, the at-home version. I'm sure there'll a lot of be people like lining up. So Jason, thanks again. Any last words before we sign off here?
No, appreciate it. I mean, I just want to say I have the blessing and opportunity to represent 200 employees for Botrista. I get to be the one that's out there in the face of Botrista. So it would be appropriate for me to mention all their hard work from the engineers to the culinary team and office team in San Francisco and Orlando. So no, thank you for having us. We're excited and appreciate being here.
Of course. Thanks again, everyone that tuned in. Actually, last thing, Jason, if folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way
Yeah.
to do that?
I mean, just LinkedIn. Send me a direct message on LinkedIn. I will respond. Or botrista.com. You can check our website out. But for me specifically, just reach out on LinkedIn.
Love it. Yeah, Jason is quite active on LinkedIn, and he's always kind of sharing the latest and greatest. And he's actually quite a lot of the shows. So if you want to look to meet him in person, he's usually at a conference near you. So Jason,
Typically.
again, appreciate you jumping on. This was awesome. Look forward to seeing you on the road soon. But if not, happy holidays in the meantime. For everyone that's tuned in, this is another episode of Data Delicacies. I'm your host, Arun. This was powered by Incentivio. Again, you have Jason Valentine over at Botrista. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn, and he's super responsive. The show drops. We're dropping every Wednesday on episodes, and again, we're still have a few more spots for end of the year. So if you are interested, reach out to me directly. We'll get you on. We'll talk about some cool stuff. But in the meantime, thank you for tuning in. See ya.